And then we have other causes of constipation, which are more, doctors would classify these more as kind of disease states, whereas these are just things that you're not doing that maybe you should be doing. These things are actually diseases that can set in. So, you can see here endocrine or metabolic disorders. Probably the most common is listed here, hypothyroid. Hypothyroid is a common cause of constipation. It's, the thyroid is necessary to drive and generate the metabolic energy that's necessary for peristalsis of the bowel. And so hypothyroid is a very common cause of constipation. Then there are neurological dysfunction disorders, and this is actually quite common. We'll see this neurologically with things like celiac, because some celiacs have chronic diarrhea, but on the other end, there are some celiacs that have chronic constipation. But we also have neurological diseases that, again, that can put a person into kind of a more of a sympathetic state. And so this example here would be like seizure disorder as a perfect example. But other neurological conditions that are treated, and we'll get to that in a minute, a lot of the medicines used to treat some of these neurological problems actually also cause constipation. And so that can be a major reason why this can happen. Myogenic disorder. So this is, myo equals muscle, right? So basically, think of your colon is a group of tubular muscles, right? Your intestines, your colon, for all the way down through you. This is muscle tissue, and it's a form of muscle tissue that, just like your arm, if you ever had a muscle cramp or a muscle spasm in your arms or legs, you can get cramps or spasms in your colon and in your intestines. And so these can be neurological cramps. These can also be myogenic cramps, meaning muscle-induced. So neurological or myogenic cramping is not an uncommon cause for constipation as well. So where we'll typically see both of these is in electrolyte imbalance. What is that? Electrolyte imbalance. This could be like a calcium or magnesium or potassium deficits, right? Deficits in electrolytes, the minerals that are necessary that allow your nerves to communicate to your muscles, but also allow your muscles to contract and relax. One of the most common causes that I see of this problem is calcium and magnesium deficit. And a lot of people are out there taking magnesium supplements to have a regular bowel movement, but calcium is also part of that equation. And so, it's not always just magnesium. It's probably one of the most common over-the-counter things people do for constipation is take like a powdered magnesium or a magnesium drink, but calcium can play that role as well. And then again, medications, we'll get to that in just a minute. Obstruction. So this is when we get in kind of the dangerous waters, in my opinion, is intestinal obstruction can kill you. So there's a number of different forms of intestinal obstruction. One of them could be that your intestines are contorted or they're twisted. There's a rotary torsion that can occur into the intestines, and that can create a blockage, and it can be fatal if not identified. So obstruction, this is one of those things that, you go to the ER because you can't poop and it's been a week or it's been 2 weeks. You might have an obstruction. It's a good idea to have a doctor check that out. And so sometimes the only way to find it, or the best way to find it, is through imaging, where they can actually see through different types of scans, whether it be a CT scan or sometimes even an X-ray can show areas of suspected obstruction as well. But again, obstruction can be a major life-threatening situation. So it's definitely, if you suspect that's something, you want to have it checked. You want to definitely have it checked out. Colon diseases directly. So inflammatory bowel disease, diverticulitis, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. These are, again, inflammatory conditions of the colon that, oftentimes are not going to cause as much constipation as they might cause diarrhea, but later stage, they can cause constipation. And then multiple environmental, biological, and pharmaceutical precipitants. So these are, again, there are a number of different things that we can be exposed to that can damage our peristalsis and slow down our peristalsis. The vast majority of them, in my opinion and in my experience as well, are medicines. So people that are on chronic medications for whatever reason that might be. This is just a list of some of the more common ones. By no means is it intended to be 100% comprehensive, but I wanted to show it to you because a lot of these are very, very common medicines. So one of them is a 5-HT3 receptor antagonist, calcium channel blockers, which are oftentimes used to treat blood pressure problems. So if you're on a calcium channel blocker for blood pressure issues, understand that might cause constipation. Antidepressants can cause constipation. Pain medications, especially in the opiate family, now aside from the fact that these, can be very deadly and very addictive, it's a very common cause of constipation. As a matter of fact, one of the major companies that produces, I can't remember, I think it was Purdue Pharma that created it, but they also own the patents on one of these antidiarrheals. So they create a product that can create constipation, and they create another product that can try to help solve the constipation their first product created. Anticholinergic agents. So these are drugs, again, when I was talking about down here neurological conditions, a lot of times these are classes of medicines that are prescribed in different neurological conditions. So you see like anticonvulsants, this would be like for seizure, so if you've been diagnosed with a seizure disorder, or epilepsy, this is what anticonvulsants are typically used for. And then we have other neurological disease like antipsychotics, that are sometimes used in diseases like schizophrenia and bipolar disease, etc. Antispasmodics, and then we come down here, more analgesics. So again, the opiates, but also other analgesics like tramadol and non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. And this is super common right here, right? This is aspirin. This is things like ibuprofen. Okay, how many people take that on a regular basis to treat their pain? You got to remember, constipation is one of the most common medical conditions or health problems in industrialized countries. And then we have anti-Parkinsonian drugs. So if you've ever been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and you're taking like a dopamine-based drug, those can cause constipation. Diuretics, so these are used to treat high blood pressure or to treat swelling in the feet or in the extremities. So again, thiazide, loop diuretics, furosemide, and hydroxychlorothiazide, all just different classes or different forms of diuretics that we know can cause constipation. Why? Because they dehydrate. Remember what we said over here is that not getting adequate fluid or pushing your fluid out of you through a diuretic. And this is another reason why diuretics, again, if not properly managed, can really create a dehydration scenario. Constipation is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of symptoms. We have antacids, medicines that block stomach acid or that inhibit stomach acid, especially the calcium and aluminum-based antacids. Antidiarrheals are bile acid resins. Overuse of these things can lead to constipation. Chemotherapy, common chemotherapy agents, vincristine and cyclophosphamide. And then as well, other compounds, contraceptives. Ladies, if you've ever taken estrogen, oral contraceptives can cause constipation. It's interesting that constipation is far more common in women than it is in men. And then we also have other chemicals, polystyrene, resins, barium sulfate, etc. And then endocrine medicines, as well as sympathomimetics. And so these are, remember what I said earlier about the sympathetic nervous system? And we said that increase in sympathetic nervous system function can increase constipation. Well, that's what this class of medicines are. They're sympathomimetics. They basically mimic, or they're chemicals that will stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. So you see ephedrine, even pseudoephedrine, as well as there have been a number. Caffeine would be an example here as an example of a sympathomimetic, because it can overstimulate the sympathetic nervous system. So again, these medicines very commonly associated with constipation. If you're taking any of these and you're struggling over here, and you've already done these lifestyle points, right? So you've got plenty of fluid coming in, you're exercising on the regular, your stress is really well managed, you're not using laxatives, you got adequate fiber in your diet. Like now, you got to start looking at this and say, okay, am I on a medicine that can cause this problem or not? And if you are, then you really ideally should have a conversation with your prescribing doctor about the symptoms. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.